know we won't have representation from Oklahoma City today. They are, as a group, are in Washington, D.C., doing reconciliation kind of meetings at the Holocaust Museum,
Mm.
at the Law Enforcement Memorial, and other places, really talking about how to resolve conflict. And so they've sort of made a pilgrimage to D.C. To engage in those kind of conversations. Um, so we knew they were not going to be able to join us, but we're excited to hear what comes out of that and how that informs the group. So I think we'll go ahead and begin. We'll have our webinar and our presentation. And Kanya, I should have asked to be sure how to pronounce your last name, Balakrishna. Did I
That
say it
is perfect.
Okay, very good. With future coach, she'll be presenting. And then we have a couple of announcements at the end related to Walmart reporting that we want to get to you and information that we need to start collecting in preparation for their November board meeting. Colleen and I will be in Bentonville on Monday through Wednesday at a grantee meeting on justice and equity. And we'll probably get some updates on the reporting, but we'll get back to you and we'll have that brief discussion at the end. But I appreciate everyone showing up today. Um, Years ago, I had the privilege of introducing President Clinton to a national conference I was president of. And right before he came on, to the advanced team, a representative from the advanced team, I said I was given nothing about what to say about him to introduce him. Do I emphasize that he'd been governor, he'd been this and that? And the guy put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Jim, all you say is, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. He doesn't need an introduction. Good point. So I'm going to feel that way with Kanya. She is a leader really in the youth development movement. She is a founder of Future Coach and the Future Project, and really has worked with young people. She's part of the overall network that the Office of American Possibilities, and which Act Now is a part of, and very excited about what she is doing and ways in which our Act Now sites might be able to collaborate and participate with her. So, Kanya, I'm going to turn it over to you and feel free to add to your introduction. But the shorter the introduction, the more important the person I just
Thank you so much. That is, yeah, I don't think I've ever been compared to President Clinton in even tangentially. So that was quite an introduction. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I am just a big admirer of the work that you all are doing, like collectively, but also, at least from what I've heard, little glimpses, just the work that you're doing in your local communities is really inspiring and really exciting. And I think many of us share a common commitment to young people. So, so I'm really, like I said, excited to be able to share over the next couple of minutes the project that I've been working with a team to build called Future Coach. But just to back up for 1 second, less as a way of introduction of myself and more as a way of introducing Future Coach and what I'm about to share with you. I've been in the youth development space basically my entire career. Back in 2011, which like I keep thinking was 3 years ago, but turns out was a long time, a lot longer than that ago. And all of the students that we were working with back then are now like married and have babies and stuff, which is mind blowing. But back in 2011, I co-founded a nonprofit, a youth empowerment, youth development nonprofit called the Future Project. We are a national organization that for about a decade, right up until the pandemic, we're working in schools, in high schools, public high schools across the country. And what we did was we invented this new role in schools called the Dream Director. They were sort of, you can think of Dream Directors as like part social entrepreneur, part community organizer, and kind of like that best coach or teacher you ever had, like many of you probably are Dream Directors in your essence. But, it's that person who saw something in you that you maybe didn't see in yourself, who who just saw potential, saw possibility, who was there for you, who helped you to see what you were capable of. And we sort of developed this role, by the way, in partnership with young people, because we had this vision that every young person should have the opportunity to explore their passion, explore their purpose, really figure out what it is that matters to them, what excites them, what drives them, and have the opportunity to take action toward whatever it is they care about while they're still young people, so that as they become adults, as they grow into leaders, and many of them already are leaders, they have that, they have those mindsets, they have those skills that help them to set and pursue the goals, the dreams that really matter most to them. And so we were doing that in person, dream directors as both forces of culture change in the building, but also, coaches and facilitators and trainers of young people, right up until the pandemic. Obviously, everything changed when the pandemic came. Dream directors didn't stop working in schools. And we had all these young people, our students, coming to us, just feeling all the things we were all feeling during the pandemic, confused and anxious, and, this sort of youth mental health crisis that that isn't really new, but certainly was exacerbated by the pandemic, started to, come into the general consciousness, because young people started to feel this, or people started to notice, I would say, this anxiety and confusion and disconnection that so many young people were experiencing and facing day to day. So really organically at first, we started offering these young people who were coming to us coaching. So we were doing like group sessions on Zoom, kind of inspired by Peloton. And we were doing, we were having text message conversations and we're talking on the phone and kind of just doing whatever we could to support, the young people who were, coming to us with their feelings and their experiences, just doing whatever we could to support them. And some months into that, we kind of stepped back and we were like, what if we're onto something that kind of transcends the moment of this pandemic, and is it as a way to, package the impact of this full-time dream director model, which was beautiful and highly impactful, but very difficult to grow. I mean, you're all, organizers and leaders in your communities, like it's hard to raise money. And that was a full-time person in every school. So we'd already been on that journey of like, how might we package the methodology, the impact, in a way that is just much more accessible than what was happening before in schools. And that context, that backdrop, both gives you a sense of the kind of work I've been doing personally over the years, but also provides some context for this new platform that we're building called Future Coach. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll go through just a couple of slides to give you a sense of what Future Coach is and what we're creating. Then I'll stop and see if you all have any questions, and also give you a sense of sort of where we are in the journey. And if you're interested, how you and the young people that you work with and serve might be able to get involved. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Can just a thumbs up from someone? Okay, cool. All right, so okay, so Future Coach. This, by the way, this deck is written in second person, basically to young people, because we just, that is the audience, that is who matters most here. So this all starts with this idea, right? That young people, they have, we all do, obviously, but young people have both the desire, but also this like incredible, potential in that, in that time of their life to really figure out what it is that they want for themselves, and, to actually take action to pursue those dreams. But we also know it's not easy. There's this mental health crisis that, is plaguing many people across the country, across the world, but also the systems that exist aren't really preparing young people to, have those mindsets, have those skills to set and pursue the goals that matter most to them. Many young people are kind of disengaged day to day in school, don't really see the relevance, or, might not even be in school at all, or might be, past school age and might be sort of disconnected from, from whether it's job opportunities or educational opportunities. Doesn't mean that they're actually disconnected or disengaged or aimless, but it does mean that they might not have, both something that they're locked into, connected to, working toward, or the support, to find that thing in the first place. So, the reality is that, like, we've seen, you all have seen, again, many of you probably are this person for many young people, that, having access to trained, caring adults, to coaches, of course, also to counselors and others, is transformative for a young person. But the reality also is that it is very difficult. We all see the ratio of caring trained adults to young people who need their support is, it's not really tenable. So what we've also seen leading up until this moment is that it's very difficult, for us as a society to give young people access to the kind of support they need to, do that kind of self-exploration, to figure out what they want, to take steps toward their the future that they desire. But the reality is that now, both changes in, and evolutions in sort of science and psychology, but also the advent of new technologies has made personalized, accessible coaching more possible than it's ever been. And I just want to say that as someone who certainly did not come into this with any goal of building a tech product, nor as a person who has any experience whatsoever prior to this, having built, building a tech product. I'll say that just the idea of building a tech product was not that interesting or motivating to me. The idea though of figuring out how to leverage the most cutting edge insight and technology out there to make something more accessible, that is a much more interesting kind of question and angle, rather than just oh, can we just, can we build a technology? But instead, how do we use technology to give young people what we, already know that they need and what they're asking for? So you can see here that, and as I talk a little bit more about the actual platform, that human support, human coaching is at the core of what I'm about to share with you. I'm not about to pitch you or share with you an AI only product or anything like that. But what we've learned over this past year of building, learning, experimenting, working with young people every step of the way is that, this emerging generative AI technology can act as a supercharger to this whole experience, making the human coaches, more augmenting their potential, but then also ensuring that, over time we can make Future Coach more affordable, more accessible, and therefore just a more viable option for more young people. So that's all super theoretical. Let me actually tell you what it is that we're building, and that will hopefully spark some questions from you all. Okay, so the way I like to think about Future Coach is as a coach in your pocket, sort of your own personal coach, accessible at your fingertips anytime. And like I said, that core value proposition to a young person is that, if you want, often I'll talk to young people and, ask them a little bit about what they want from their life, for their future. And they'll often say something positive, but very vague. Like, I want to make a difference, or I want to help people, or I want to be successful, or I want to make money. And that's all great. But so we know that there's hunger, there's motivation that most young people have. But they often need some support in unpacking what that actually means and figuring out where to start. So that's what we really want Future Coach to be there for you when you feel stuck, when you feel lost, when maybe you're just alone on the journey, on your journey, and you need somewhere to go to help you sort out what it is what's your next step? What do you actually want and need to do in order to achieve or just even pursue those purposeful goals and dreams, the things that matter to you. So your personal coach in your pocket at all times. I'll go through this actually. So there's some core features, that this is all built around. I'm just going to walk you through some of what those are at a high level, and then again, see where your heads are at. So when you sign up for Future Coach, you log on. It's a mobile app on your phone in the App Store. It's not yet in the App Store, but it will soon in the next couple of weeks be in the App Store, in the Google Play Store. You log in. And you start by going through an onboarding. It's fast and it's friendly, as it says here, but it's also hopefully really meaningful. This is a time that, we ask you a handful of questions, some obvious ones like what brought you here, have you been coached before? But we also then ask you a handful of questions on a 5-point scale to get a sense of sort of where you are in your purpose pursuit journey. So we ask you things like, do you have an understanding of what your values are? Do you have some things that excite you in life? Do you have some kind of goal that matters to you that you're in pursuit of? And just give you a chance to say on a scale of 1 to 5, does this sound like me or not? And then you get to the end of the onboarding, and what pops out for you is actually a readback that gives you a sense immediately, a personalized glimpse of where you are in your journey. You know, you may be kind of a dreamer right now. You've got lots of ideas and a lot of prospects, but maybe you haven't really taken a lot of steps toward them. Maybe you're more like an adventurer, like you're actually you have a lot of things in the works, but you're not really sure which one matters most to you or what you want to pursue. But the idea is that we want to offer you as a young person, as a user, value right away. And not just be asking of you, but instead giving back to you right away. So you log on, you go through this onboarding. When you finish the onboarding, you get dropped into the chat. And that is, you know, the coach section of the app is the main feature. And in the MVP, the minimum viable product that we've been building over the last couple of months, we really focus on this main sort of feature. Basically, it's a scrolling chat, you know, that you can that just sort of, you know, you constantly are adding to, and when you go to this chat, you can have conversations at any time with our trained AI coach, whose name that we're experimenting with right now is Navi, short for navigator. So you can talk to Navi anytime. Navi is trained in all the things that our human coaches are trained in as well: the methodology, the science, the techniques, the tone. We've been working on that obviously for many months now, really trying to get Navi to be an effective kind of navigator and steward of your experience. So you join the chat. Navi says, you know, Navi's there. You can talk to them anytime. And then if and when you're interested, you can press the button, this little service bell right here at the bottom left, and you can talk to a human coach. So eventually you can imagine it almost like Uber, like you press the button and 3 to 5 minutes, you know, from now, like a coach is ready for a conversation. At first, you know, when there's fewer coaches, it'll be more like you can schedule a time. But that's the idea, is that, and then you can see in this photo right, or in this image right here, this human coach, Coach Anna. So you can see above, the young person was talking to Navi, and then they press the button, Coach Anna pops in and starts having a conversation. And so that, you know, this, and then as you're having these conversations, the system, you know, this is part of what has been so magical, you know, about building a technology platform, is it can just get more personalized and more effective over time. So more you talk to us, the more we learn about how you like to have conversations, what really matters to you, you know, what tone and you know, type of language actually inspires you the most, what kind of goals do you most respond to, or challenges that your coach issues to you do you most respond to, etc. And when you press the human coach button, you talk to whichever coach is available to you available on the platform at that time. That's part of how we would keep this accessible and scalable, is, you know, making it possible, you know, it's not limiting you to one person, because, you know, that makes it much more expensive and more difficult to execute. So you talk to whoever's available, and you can get to know those coaches, and you can have like a coaching team form essentially over time. The other thing that's available in this coach section are, as you can see at the bottom here, these little icons. Each of those is an AI powered exercise that you can kind of do on your own. We just have 3 or 4 to start in our MVP. Like there's one that's called the goal setter, one that's the values inventory, like a weekly reflection tool. Basically you go in and you press the button, and it just goes back and forth with you and helps you do whatever it is that exercise is designed to do. Set a goal, you know, uncover your 3 core values, etc. Okay, so that's the heart of it. There's a few other features here that are not part of the MVP, but are just, you know, ideas that we've developed that we would phase in over time. One is this discover section, which we see as a content library with short form video content that exposes you to paths, pathways, jobs, you know, passions, projects, you know, that others have taken on that might get you excited. It can also offer you video coaching content that you can watch. We're not going to start with that in the app, but we are starting to put some of that together for social media. So there will be some of this as part of the Future Coach universe, just not on social media. I'm sorry, just not within the app at first. Then there's we imagine this whole space called Journey, where you can track your progress, you can, you know, record reflections, you can do all kinds of things to sort of help you track your journey of growth over time. At first, in the MVP, this is just a place, honestly, to record the goal you're working on at the moment. But over time, it could become a really robust section in the platform. You'll be able to share off app, actually, like this is not a social network, so young people actually can't contact each other in the app for safety reasons primarily, but also because it's not really the purpose of this. We want you to feel like you're part of a community, but that community will mostly live, on social media. Really, when you're here, when you're in the app, you are, you're working on your dreams, your goals, your future. And you could be doing that in partnership with other people for sure. And you're always, of course, able to talk to the coaches, but this isn't like, we're not trying to, why would we honestly try to build, another social network? That doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but you will be able to share some of this off the app so that you can share with your in real life community, what you're learning and how you're growing. And then, there'll be settings. We're working with a lot of safety experts to help us build those out. And then finally, I'll just double click for a second on our coaching methodology. This is this sort of science underlying all of this is the science of purpose. And, the idea that, every young person can have that like life compass that guides them, that provides them with meaning, but also gives them, a sense of how they want to contribute more broadly to the world. We don't see purpose as like a static thing, like you find your purpose and then you're done. But instead it's, we talk about our ultimate outcome is purpose pursuit, as always having the ability, the mindset, that, you can set and pursue purposeful goals, purposeful dreams. So we've sort of anchored our methodology in purpose. And, there are these 5 major strategies: self-knowledge, exposure, action, opportunity, and opportunities and relationships that, we have built Future Coach to kind of deliver on, in order to help young people, grow and develop every step of the way. So I don't think I need to go through any of this in much detail. I will stop with this page, which is that part of what has been so honestly fun about building this out. I am no longer a youth leader myself, but this is not a youth-led initiative in that way, but it is absolutely a youth-centered one. And we have this incredible paid, trained group of young people. It's a little bigger than this group, but this was the sort of founding group. It's grown a little bit in the past year. It's a really diverse, very creative group of young people that we recruited from all across the country. And they are involved every step of the way. They're in our Slack channel, or they're in our Slack. They do assignments every week. We have, there's a formal sort of Zoom call every month, but then more often than that, they're doing work and contributing to decisions. They're contributing, they give feedback. Yes, that's important. But honestly, more than that, they've helped design things. And now that we've moved into the testing phase, they're the first ones to test everything before we put it out in front of more and more young people. Okay, so I won't go through any more of this, but I just want to share that this deck is actually if you can see on the side here, like a 150 slide by slide walkthrough of the entire product. So as we imagine it. So if that's of interest, I can put the link in the chat if anyone wants to go through that. But I just, wanted to share it to give you a tangible sense rather than just a theoretical one of what we're building and what it actually looks and feels like. Let me say 2 more things and then I will pause and, see what's on your minds. First, I said I would give you a sense of where we are in this journey. So we started doing, the first sort of step we took was we did a bunch of low cost piloting back in, it was late 2022, early 2023. We had a bunch of young people, it was I don't know, 30 or 50 of them. And then we had a bunch of us who were kind of being coaches on the back end. They were using SMS or WhatsApp. This was before, by the way, the AI revolution happened. It all happened very quickly. But we were doing, basically I don't know how many of you can resonate, but I'll just, very honestly, I was a little skeptical, after most of the work that I'd always done had been in person with young people. I was kind of skeptical and worried about whether you could build real meaningful connections, which is so core to coaching in a virtual context. I think, first of all, the pandemic kind of caused me to question my assumptions. I think that happened to a lot of us. But also in this piloting, we did, 3 different pilot rounds. We actually found that, there's no reason in many ways to compare because there's nobody saying that it's not extremely powerful to do work in person, obviously. But what we found was that virtually, in a virtual context, especially in this text-based context, young people were opening up actually really quickly. And that little bit of anonymity created a different kind of safe space, I think, than exists in person. Again, not better or worse, just different. And so we had people sharing a lot very quickly. And And that was really powerful. So we kind of figured out how to meet the moment there and change our coaching style, so that it could work in that context as powerfully as possible. So we ran those pilots, sort of extracted as many insights and learning as we could. We went out and raised, some additional, we're nonprofit, so we raised some initial, funding to get the design work going. And then, AI, the generative AI, to a layperson like me, if you were a tech person, I'm sure you'd already been thinking about this, but, early 2023 is when everything kind of burst into the scene and ChatGPT came up, and we started thinking about, well, what's the role that AI should play in all of this? And, a lot of people were like, well, just build an AI only coach. And like, obviously the benefit of that is just extreme scale as possible, right? When you have an AI only product. But I think, we were coming at this from a youth development perspective and know the value and importance of having human connections for young people. And so the way we think about it, as you saw, is kind of like a human AI hybrid where the humans are the core, the AI is making the whole thing more efficient, more effective, more personalized, and hopefully, most importantly, more accessible over time to young people. Which, by the way, will take time. The way I see it is like the first few years probably actually will be kind of expensive because we want to hire the best of the best coaches, make sure they're offering, of course, the best service to the young people, but also the coaches, those first few years of interactions between young people and coach actually help make, fine tune the AI over time too. So we think, a few years from now, maybe we could, make partnerships, for example, with like social work schools and coach training programs and things like that, and kind of offer clinical hours, something like that to the coaches, while bringing the cost down for us a lot. But we'll get there. Right now, we just, we have to focus on quality and getting this right. So, we went through the design phase, and then, imagine that whole 150 slides that I just showed you, and then really zeroed in and said, okay, what's the heart of this? What's the minimum viable product, or the MVP? We decided that core coaching system, we could talk anytime to the human and AI coaches, with the content and other things phasing in, over time, in response to what young people actually like and use and need in the platform. So we've been building that then over the last 5 or 6 months. We have just built our MVP, minimum viable product, is just finishing up. I've got it on my phone, which is exciting. It's still in like a staging app. It's going to be in the App Store, like I said, in the next couple of weeks. And we are, as a result, starting a beta testing phase. So I can answer more questions, but sort of the call to action, the invitation to you all is, if the young people that you work with, by the way, sort of target age here, I should have started with that, is like, we think of it as like 16 to 24. I think it could go a little higher over time, maybe a little lower over time, but we really see it as like young people in transition, making choices about their lives, about their futures. So if you have young people that you're working with, no matter where they are, that's one nice thing about technology-driven platforms and offerings, is that location is not as important in that sense. That if you have young people that you think might be interested in beta testing, we'd love to have them be part of that effort. And, they'll use the app for a few weeks or forever, but like as part of the beta test, use it for a few weeks, and then can, do surveys or join focus groups. And then when they give their feedback, we also give them a little honorarium to thank them for their contribution and their ideas. And hopefully, of course, they've also gotten value out of actually using the app and getting coaching from both the humans and the AI. So let me pause there. I hope that was clear and informative. And I have a tendency to speak very fast, so hopefully that was also understandable. But I'm just grateful to be able to share with you all, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kimberly. Kanya. I'm looking at Kimberly's name. Thank you, Kanya, for that presentation. Any questions that anyone has that you'd like to raise? Tanner, question?
This is so incredible.
Thank
I
you.
love what you're making, and I feel like you're doing it so fast. I have kids, and I just can't even imagine the value of having this available. My kids are a little bit younger still, but I'm even just thinking about kids in my neighborhood and youth who I've been exposed to who need some coaching, but maybe the access is tricky.
Yeah.
You may have spoken to this, but I might have missed it, but I'm curious about pricing and kind of like Like how does this, is this a one-on-one type thing? Do you do, if an organization wanted to buy 30 memberships or something like that, like, can you maybe talk through some of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, thank you. I appreciate that, the excitement. So it's a great question. And I will say, I'm talking to you all at a very early stage. So we're still figuring out a lot of things. That is one of them. But what you just described, so right now, like beta testing, everything is free, obviously, to everyone, because we're just still trying to make sure that it's working and it's great and we're getting feedback along the way and improving it along the way. But the idea is for us to have a business model very similar to what you just described, that, we think of it as kind of a membership or subscription model. And that, the potential audiences are schools, youth serving nonprofits, colleges, corporations, et cetera, that want to offer, this to the young people in their networks, in their lives. Over time though, I mean, part of what really excites me about this, I mean, it's hard to scale something that's just B2C, like just put it on the app store and people will use it. But I hope that, over time we can have enough traction here that that also can just be a viable thing, that like, yes, of course, we can make partnerships with youth serving organizations and they can pay for subscriptions, but I'm hoping we can find a price point and a business model that, we can also just have, I mean, I could, people can also just download it and use it. One thing that I hope will be able to happen over time, for example, is even while we do the kind of more B2B sales process and all this, that we also can, get foundations or whatever to subsidize a bunch of memberships just for anyone anywhere who downloads the app and wants to use it. Because I want this to be free. Ideally, this is free to young people, right? Especially because we're trying to make sure that this gets, that this is accessible to young people of all sorts, especially those who come from, marginalized communities, face structural oppression, et cetera. So we'll see how it actually all shapes up. I imagine it's going to be kind of like a mixed kind of model, in terms of how this gets to people. But right now it's just free to everyone. So if you're interested, this is a great time to start, using it, and also hopefully helping to shape it so that it's as effective as possible for young people.
Other questions? Tyrone.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can ask your question first if you want.
Is there an ideal age that you guys have in mind for the youth?
Great question. I see the target age is like 16 to 24. It's a range, but it's like late teenage years, early adulthood, time of transition, basically. You're trying to figure out what you want from life, from your future. Maybe you're wanting to go to school, maybe you're not, maybe you're, trying to get a job, maybe you're not, there's all sorts of questions. And you're also just trying to get to know yourself at that time. So yeah, we'll see over time, like that might get narrower. It also might get broader. Everyone, like I talk to a lot of adults about this and they're always like, I wish I had a version of this. And so who knows, but the, the focus is really on like late adolescence, early adulthood years.
Okay, Tyrone.
Yeah, I have sort of like, I guess, two questions.
Great.
But the first one is I'm kind of curious how you're training your the bot, because is it learning from the human coaches, or are you feeding it sort of external data? I was curious when I was listening to.
Yeah.
And kind of the second part is a little related, because you said that the bot gets the same training as the human coaches, and so I'm kind of just curious, because obviously with AI algorithms, discrimination can be a huge problem. And so I'm curious what sort of anti-discriminatory training or practices you're working into the app or the training for the and the coaches.
Yeah, that's they're all great questions, but that last point is, I mean, it's a challenging one to navigate, because especially as lay people who are not, obviously I wasn't, responsible or involved in any way with like building the LLM, that we're using. OpenAI did that, but I think it's such an interesting and important question. On your first point about how we're training the bot, basically the answer is both of those things, both of the strategies that you mentioned are what we're using. So there's one effort that's basically prompt engineering, where we have been feeding the bot, two types of things. Knowledge. So we've given it access to all of the like raw research papers and like lots of like, like both raw and also synthesized in, context about the science, the different methodologies that are at play, both again super theoretical but also more practical stuff, like here are motivational interviewing techniques, like this is what this is how you should talk to a young person based on this and this these best practices. So there's a lot of knowledge. And then we have something called the Constitution, which is basically instruction. So that's where we really try to get its tone right. We have like you say this, not this, and like there's a lot of like really specific instructions that we give to the bot around how to respond and how to carry on a conversation. And it's really specific stuff, right? Like use their name, and when they like this is how to make it, we want to make it feel personal, like here's some strategies for that. Or don't, like sometimes you ask ChatGPT a question and they might give a good answer, but it's like so long, and that's just not how you want a coaching conversation to be. You want it to feel natural. So that's a lot of what that Constitution, those instructions are focused on. So there's all of that. In addition to that, we're going through a process called fine tuning, which is what you reference, which is that we can use the data that is generated anonymized, to be clear, anonymized, like we take away any, there's also coaches don't have access to any personal identifying information of the young people. Like young people get to say what they want to be called. The coaches don't see any of their phone number, obviously, or like email address or zip code or anything like that. They just see the stuff that the young people says we want you to see. But anyway, so we can take the conversations between coaches and young people, human coaches and young people, and use that to just over time keep fine tuning the bot so that it's responding more and more like the human coaches do. And actually what's really cool is that we formed a partnership with an organization called the Youth Coaching Institute. I and others on my team went through their training. We're really impressed. They're very like evidence-based in their approach. Anyways, we formed a partnership. They've been actually helping us build out our training. In addition to that, though, they gave us dozens of hours of footage with, of course, the permission of the clients between coaches and young people. So we already have some initial training data, which is pretty rare. It's usually like you have to build, in this kind of situation, you kind of have to build the base over time. But it's really exciting because we're gonna be able to start training, fine tuning the bot up front, and then keep doing that over time. So yeah, it's a fun journey. In addition to that, by the way, so I think the question of bias, we're doing everything we can, like, right, we're giving young people like who represent our target population, helping to shape the bot, testing the bot. Our team is representative or attempts to be representative of the young people we serve. So we're doing everything in our power. But you're right to point out that like these LLMs are inherently biased. So that's, I think, just an ongoing journey. I've like been meeting people, who are focusing more of their time. I mean, this is not my expertise. So focusing more of their time and attention and figuring out how to solve for that bias question and getting them to advise us. But I definitely don't have like an answer to that. I will say that one thing we've been putting a lot of time to is the sort of safety and guardrails. We have actually an additional bot that's all like the safety, all the guardrails. And that bot, basically when a young person writes something like, hello, I am stressed, that goes to the main bot, but also simultaneously goes to the guardrails bot. And if you say something, like if you say I'm stressed, that's one thing. If you say I'm scared, for example, the guardrails might flag that and then tell us on the back end that something is up. Or if it's something really, really, like a big red flag, like, I think I might hurt myself or something, then immediately it also says to the young person, you're talking to coaches, not not clinical professionals. Here's some places you can go right away. And then we would be notified on the back end too. And we have our clinical on-call person. So anyway, we're trying to build in a lot of safety mechanisms. But I don't have a great answer yet on the bias side. We're doing everything we can, but really try to learn on that front. It's a great question.
So Kanya, following up on that, how would a site, or how are you, I know you're relatively new at this, but recruit young people to be a part of this? How's it promoted? I mean, would it be through their existing youth organizations that they're working with, or through schools? What's your experience in getting people to engage?
Yes, that's a great question. So we've been basically right now, everything is happening kind of as you just alluded to, Jim, through partnerships. So we've got, a number of youth serving nonprofits and schools that have basically agreed to offer this opportunity to young people in their communities. And then we've got marketing materials and things you can share with them that says, hey, here's the opportunity. You become a beta tester for Future Coach. That means you use the app for some period of time, and then join a focus group or do an in-depth survey and give us your feedback so that you can help improve it. And we'll give you a little honorarium when you do that. So we'll equip you with, whatever, materials, et cetera, that you need. And then you can just go to the young people, whether through your organization, affiliated organizations, or through a school, or just to a young person that you know, and we can sign them up, give them access to the app, and have them get started.
Okay. Kim, Alexander, you have a question?
I do. I wanted to piggyback on Tyron's question regarding the biases that exist. You
Yep.
said you guys are using best practices, but best practices can be a lot of things. So what determines, just knowing that culturally competent clinicians are few and far between, as is culturally competent data
Yeah.
around what marginalized communities need and want, what qualifies something to be a best practice for this community?
Yeah, it's a great question. We part of how we're doing this is to ensure that, most of the, I just want to be careful about exact, because I don't have like percentages in my mind when I say most of, but this is accurate. Most of the advisors and the specialists that we've brought in, including clinical specialists, are Black and brown specialists, psychologists and social workers. And so and many of them have specialty in serving, communities of color, serving young people growing up at or near poverty. So we're trying to make sure our team is staffed with not just people who look like our target audience of young people. That is, of course, in of itself important, but also people who have specific clinical experience serving those populations of young people. Because you're right, the research is, things are changing, but they're changing slowly. And so, a lot of the research I know has been done in, involves, young people who are not necessarily reflective of our target audience. So we're trying to solve for that as much as possible by drawing on the work of people who are specialists in, serving Black and brown youth and understanding the needs of Black and brown youth. And then also trying to bring, as I've noted a couple times, like just bring those young people, that are, that both are literally going through life right now. They are young people or they're near peers, into the process so that they're able to, use things as before they're even really ready before they're complete, and give feedback and help shape things from the beginning. So, if you're thinking of specific ideas or, people to turn to as we're doing this, I'm very, very open, because we're definitely committed, we're committed to being as effective as we can in serving this population of young people in as well as possible. And a lot of that, to your point, involves, trying to be really smart and thoughtful about who we bring in and how. So I think honestly, my answer to you, that was a little long-winded, sorry, but my answer is to really lean on the who. That's, I think, how we've been trying to approach this is make sure that the people who are advising and creating, have as much expertise as possible serving Black and brown and marginalized youth.
Marilyn, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. I couldn't find the little hand, so I raised my own hand. A lot of the youth, many of the youth that we work with in Schenectady, Cheryl and myself, have been criminally justice involved.
Yes.
A number of them might be on probation. Tell me how you may have tailored or plan to help young people who have made some mistakes, made some poor decisions, are in the criminal justice system, you know, for a period of time. And the hope is, well, actually there are two hopes. The hope is that, number one, as a probationer or a parolee, you find new things to do and new goals in your life, and you start working on those. But then number two, some of the younger people that we work with, we intend to keep them from becoming criminally involved or involved with the criminal justice system in the first place.
Right.
So how might you have planned some things for that?
I think that's a really interesting set of questions and explorations that I would actually love to work with you all, you know, to come up with good answers to. You know, I have some thoughts, of course, but I am like nowhere as close to an expert as you and others at really figuring out how to solve for needs of young people with, you know, the needs of the young people that you're specifically talking about. And, you know, we've actually got a few other potential partners, the Justice and Joy National Coalition, a few others that also serve justice system impacted youth in some way. So that might just be an interesting, like, little sub exploration for us to do together, actually. And you know, I think the core principles of coaching, right, are like very appropriate and valuable for young people going whatever they're going through, right? About like trusting them, you know, believing they're the expert in their own life, having a listening orientation, being non-judgmental, all of that is like at the core. So I feel like that's great. You know, coaching, I feel in general is basically useful to everyone, but I absolutely, you know, would acknowledge that there are probably some additional, especially for young people who have had already experience in the justice system, and, you know, who are trying to sort of navigate life after that experience. So yeah, I'd love to explore working on that with you all so that we make sure that we can support them as well as possible.
And I have one other follow-up question then. Some of the young people that Cheryl works with in particular, she does probationer conversations and some of the older people or people who have been on probation for a longer period of time and who are making positive decisions in their life, and their lives are beginning to change. They're incredible. I can't believe some of the ways that they have helped younger people who are newly in the criminal justice system and are on supervised, you know, supervision and all of that. Some of the things that they say to these young people that really they're the most credible messenger to the young people. Would you ever consider engaging some young people who have been through that then as a coach? And Cheryl, add to that question if you want to.
Well, I think it's really a great question. I'm kind of viewing this as a prevention tool on the one hand, but on the other, to Marilyn's point, we have young people who have already sort of dipped their toe into the criminal justice system and, you know, be helpful. We don't want them jumping in. So we want to try to prevent on both ends.
Yes. Yeah. I love all of this. I would say on the, you know, that sort of, can they be coaches or can they, I think that's an incredible idea. I think, you know, I just think that's something we have to explore. And we've definitely thought a little bit about, like, you know, near peer maybe is the way to talk about, but like, you know, young people who have some experience that the young people who are seeking the coaching have had, you know, being, and it might mean that over time we, you know, maybe there's like a couple of different types of coaches on the platform, you know, like there's people who are sort of like, you know, they're overall coaches who can talk to you about anything. And then there's people with specialties. That's something that we've thought about, you know, that we might be able to roll out over time. You know, it could be that, you know, we realize that there's a huge opportunity for X, Y, or Z type of, with young people with people with X, Y, or Z type of experience to be coaches. And so maybe we, you know, have the Youth Coaching Institute do sort of the 101 training, and then we train you to actually be on the platform. I don't know. There's a lot of, I think, ways to think through this. And so that's part of why, you know, part of the goal of beta testing, of the beta testing phase is, yes, it's to make sure the app works well, of course, but honestly, more than that, it's to make sure that it's serving needs, right? Because I mean, even the young people who are been involved from the start, like it's one thing to say what you think and another thing to use the thing. You're going to have sometimes you might be like, I don't want to, talk to the AI about X, Y, or Z. And then it turns out you actually like talking to it about everything, or vice versa. Or, so I think a lot of the goal in this, next couple of months, it's not like a long period. It's going to be lots of iteration, but one of the big goals of the next couple of months is, is to really see how people want to use this, and then keep evolving our assumptions and our design based on that.
And then I think one last question.
Okay.
So I saw your slide in your deck of presentation of your large group of young people that you gathered information from. I've forgotten if they were a board or whatever. As you get further along, might you want to consider having an advisory group or a board of young people who have been involved in the criminal justice system, who have turned their lives around, and who might then give you suggestions of how to use this for others?
Yeah, that answer is easier than all the other questions. Yes, the answer to that is yes. And I think it could be also like, having some young people who have been involved in the criminal justice system already, just in this group. This is called the Y Lab, the Youth Leader Advisory Board. And then, maybe having kind of separate, I could imagine maybe a bunch of different, smaller or separate advisory boards that are more kind of experience or identity oriented, where young people can say, well, I bet, other young people who've gone through X, Y, or Z that I've experienced, this is what would be most valuable for them. So yes, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is there's so many ways to do it, and I'm excited to explore it.
Thank you. Tanner, you have a question? Another question?
Yeah, my question is about how you're measuring your impact. I'm just curious, when you start with an individual, like what is your hope? Your like what are you hoping to accomplish, and how are you measuring that? And obviously we're early in the process, but I'm just curious how you're thinking through that.
No, it's a great question. So the ultimate outcome that we are trying to cultivate is what we call purpose pursuit. So the idea, it's not just about purpose, because as we've discussed, just as I briefly said, like purpose is not a destination. It's not like, oh, I have a purpose statement and now we're like at the end of the journey. Like that's nothing. We know that. But it's instead purpose pursuit, which, we kind of break down as a set of mindsets and skills and capabilities that you need to be able to set and pursue goals or dreams, but I would say goals that really matter to you. So that means like, there's a bunch of self-knowledge and self-awareness things in there. There's having like hope and optimism enough about the future that you're even able to see into the future. There's some like very tangible goal setting, skills and capabilities in there, and goal pursuit skills and capabilities, and on and on. So there's this like, purpose pursuit is this ultimate outcome. There's these intermediate outcomes. There's like 5 or 6 of them that we sort of monitor. And one exciting thing, as a person who's always worked in person and done in-person programs, I will say one of the worst parts of the experience is like chasing down young people to do the pre and post surveys, at the beginning and the end of the program, or at the school year, or whatever it is. And one nice thing about a technology platform is that you can more easily, have like do the pre-survey. So there's a bunch of questions we ask very quickly, but as part of that onboarding, and then, that we can ask later on, or the coach can just ask you in a conversation back and forth. There's also like more subtle ways, to just like observe their usage patterns and things like that also can give us really good information. User satisfaction, every time you have a conversation with a coach, you get a quick, like couple of question survey. The coaches can also, after they have a conversation with you, record their notes, and that can be part of, so we can form this like comprehensive, more comprehensive view of your growth as a user, as a young person, than I think one can often do in an in-person context. Again, there's so much good stuff about working in person. This is just one of the exciting things that we don't have to do in the same way now that we're, building this technology platform. There's also a lot of like outputs versus outcomes that are interesting to look at. Like, we're not like, we're not trying to hold young people to a goal that they set and be like, oh, you're only successful if you achieve this goal. But it is interesting to see, like, you know, are they setting more goals over time, less goals? Are they achieving more goals over time? And, you know, that's only part of a picture, but there are things like that too. Are they having more conversations, less conversations with the coaches? Is it longer? Are they shorter? All of that is interesting fodder too, for us to, you know, look at as part of a picture and, you know, sort of see what their growth, what their evolution looks like. But purpose pursuits, that ultimate outcome that we're really, you know, always trying to angle everything toward.
Other questions? So Kanya, how do we follow up with you if we're interested in implementing or promoting this kind of technology or this kind of use with our youth, as our focus is on deflection programs going into this second cycle of Act Now?
Yeah.
What's our...
Yeah. So I wonder if the easiest thing is for me to put together, like, you know, an email like I would to any other partner who's interested, saying, you know, like, here's how basically you can become part of the beta testing. And I can share that. I can either just share that with you, Jim, and you could share it out, or I could like reply all to the calendar invite. You tell me what's best and send something out to everyone. I also, there are some like really good specific or really interesting specific ideas and questions that came up. So I would be more than happy to have follow-up conversations with anyone who might be interested in doing so, because this is just, I mean, it's just an exciting, I mean, clearly I'm like very passionate about what I do, and I know you all are too. And I'm really, you know, eager to both learn from you and also like learn from the young people that you serve and figure out how best to serve, you know, populations of young people that could really benefit from, you know, access to coaching. So anyway, you tell me what you think is best, Jim, but I'm happy to, you know, prep a little, like, here's how to get involved with beta testing email as at least as a start.
Yeah, why don't you send that to me and we'll send it out to the group. And also, this session has been recorded. A couple of you had to join late, and so you'll have the full recording. We'll be sending that out to everybody. So that would, yeah, that would be helpful. It's interesting, Kanya, just one other piece of information. We met with a group yesterday called Multarity, based on contrasting multarity with polarity and the fact that we're so polarized. And they're doing visual AI. They're facilitating meetings or groups of people together that, and the AI captures it, then presents it back visually as artwork. And yeah, and it's really a way in which to engage. You may want to search Multarity and see the kind of, they're partnering with a number of organizations in the criminal justice space, as well as the youth development and human trafficking space. But it's very intriguing what it is they're doing.
Yeah.
In terms of the visual and symbol, the role of symbols and visualization in resolving conflict, as opposed to just words. You know,
yeah.
so, interesting concept.
That's really interesting.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate, Kanya, your presentation and you being involved. And you're doing great work, and we're really interested in figuring out a way to collaborate with you. To our sites.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Sure. To our sites, just briefly, you'll be receiving a form within the next day or two that allows you to record the number of people you're having contact. Walmart is very interested in having a monthly report on the number of people you're engaging in your community, the number of meetings, the number of events. There'll be categories. There'll be sort of a way in which you can just simply record. You've held a meeting of your justice circle and there were 15 people or 20 people. You can record that number. That's important going into their November board meeting, and that they want all of their grantees, which is about 50, and then plus our Act Now sites feeding that data. And so Colleen and Tanner will be communicating with you on how to fill out that form and then getting it back to us. Should be an easy, straightforward process. It shouldn't be overly cumbersome, but it'll be very helpful to us as we go forward. Colleen, do you have anything you want to add to the group?
My question just to Kanya is, can we share your PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, absolutely. I'll actually put a link to it in the chat, and then I can also, oh, that's not, sorry, just linked the little message Kim you sent me. I'll put a link to it in the chat, and then I can also put it in my email.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your participation, and thanks for attending all the Q-side meetings and gathering together. And we're really excited the things that we're hearing from the sites. We're glad to have Mothers of Black Boys, one of our new sites. They have multiple sites, but they're based out of Houston. And Kim Alexander is on this, and we're very excited to have them a part of the group. Also, Walk a Talk.
Talk a mile.
Talk a Mile. I'll get that right yet. Out of Portland, Oregon, which is doing some really great work with law enforcement recruits and young people and creating a dialogue over a mile walk. And they're participating. They're based out of Portland, but they're in Denver and Seattle as well. And so they're coming on board as a site. Plus, the Northern Capital Region of New York, which Schenectady was on, Troy will eventually be coming on, and Albany will be coming on as a part of this. So those are new sites. Appreciate everybody's involvement, and hope you have a great weekend. Okay, thank you.
We can.